There have been some new documents dropped in the Bryan Kohberger case. Last night, we talked about the documents and what they could mean. I know I had some opinions about them, but my opinions may have changed a little bit on some of the documents. In full disclosure, I've been sick since the weekend. I had a little bit of brain fog going on, so I wasn't thinking the clearest. Now that I've been, got an opportunity to see these documents and see them with a clear mind, I have an idea of what some of the documents may mean and what we could possibly see here in the near future. Hit that like and subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Without further ado, let's break it down. Let's start off first with the case summary. What we saw here in the last couple of days was that a subpoena was issued by the defense on 12/26/24. That subpoena was a subpoena duces tecum. And on the 27th, they dropped a motion to compel. We also saw that on the 23rd of January, we're going to see a motion hearing. So let's break it down. Let's get into a few of these. We are looking at the motion to compel. So the motion to compel says right here, it says Kohberger, who's obligated to submit a defense guilt phase expert disclosure by January 23rd, 2025. So what does that tell us? That this motion hearing here on January 23rd, 2025 has to do with Bryan Kohberger's disclosure of experts that he has to disclose to the prosecution. Now, this material for sanctions is basically the defense asking for the opinions and reports of the experts that the prosecution is having. They had something about 25 experts and only 5 reports and opinions and things of that nature, which I did talk to a friend of mine who is close with a defense attorney, and I brought this up to their attention. We talked about this. So basically what I was told was that the prosecution has to disclose their witnesses and their experts, so that way when it comes to trial, they can use them. But not every expert is required to write a report for what they're doing and saying. It's a common practice, apparently. This is something that happens in quite a few cases, from what I understand. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the state responds to. And then the next document that came out, which was the subpoena duces tecum, we debated a little bit, talked about it, speculated quite a bit last night about who the potential witness could be, right? I thought possibly, it could be Bethany Funke. She's been somebody that the defense wanted to talk to earlier during this process. I don't know if they ever did get a chance to talk to her or not. So I thought maybe this could be the person that they were getting subpoenaed for this hearing. However, again, this is for the January 23rd, 2025 hearing. And this is for somebody to stay through the end as a witness in the above entitled manner as part of the defendant. This witness that is going to be on behalf of the defense team is referencing here where Kohberger is obligated to submit his defense guilt expert disclosures by January 23rd, 2025. It says here in the footnote, Mr. Kohberger does not include here a motion to strike the death penalty for the failure to properly disclose experts. Without proper disclosure, that motion is forthcoming. So we know that's going to be coming. And my assumption is that you're going to bring in some witnesses that are going to be talking about how difficult it may be or how it's prejudice for a defendant to go into trial without knowing what the experts are going to say, so he doesn't know how to protect himself. It's stated here that the experts may testify on finding impressions or conclusions that he or she drew from work of other experts who previously examined or handled the evidence in question. I'm assuming those 20 of the 25 had something to do with that. There was probably the main experts that brought out their report and what they thought, and then the ones that are behind them, maybe they're not required to disclose that. But I'm not a lawyer. That's just kind of the information that I got from my buddy who is close to a lawyer. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the possibility that the prosecution and law enforcement have fingerprints. In this same document here is the argument. The argument is that the expert issues are complex, involving many different facets of DNA, cellular data, cell tower coverage, and drive testing, car identification, crime scene and blood spatter analysis, fingerprint analysis, forensic pathology, and electric device analysis of the suspect, victims, and alternative suspects. These are the experts that are for the prosecution. I know a lot of people have been saying in the comment section to the live last night that maybe perhaps these are fingerprints of other people. Well, this is the prosecution's case. These are the prosecution's witnesses. And this is the case against Bryan Kohberger. So I don't understand where the fingerprints of other people would come into play here. Now, if this was the defense witness and they were going to try to say that there were other people there, then I would understand the fingerprint expert on their side of things. But since it's on the prosecution side, and this is the case against Bryan Kohberger, this is a Bryan Kohberger fingerprints. Now, what could it have been on? Where could it have been? You would expect to find them in his vehicle, in his house, in his apartment, and things of that nature. So it's not about those type of things. I know somebody asked, maybe it's when they caught him on video in different places, that they were trying to say, hey, this is him, not only because we see him on camera, but we also have his fingerprints in the area. The only problem with that is they didn't arrest Bryan Kohberger for about 8 weeks to 9 weeks after he purchased certain things. It was 7 weeks after the murders had been committed, but he had purchased things before that. I think it was a few days before that he had purchased the Dickies suit, and I'm not sure, about maybe a couple of weeks before that, he allegedly purchased from Amazon the K-bar knife and sheath. Where is the prosecution trying to say that Bryan Kohberger was during the time of the murders? That is inside the house. What do we know that Bryan Kohberger touched inside of that house that has his DNA on it? Correct. That would be the knife sheath, which could explain and be the reason why they're using that DNA and why they feel so confident in touch DNA. There could be other DNA sources there, but the reason they were using the touch DNA is maybe perhaps, and lo and behold, leather, you can leave fingerprints on leather. So is it possible that he left his fingerprints and his DNA on the knife sheath? How would you explain that story that would have to come with that to say, hey, he handled it, he sold it, he bought it, it was stolen? The possibility of somebody taking that knife, also matching the same height and weight, also drives the same other car without a front license plate, also was out and about at the same time that Bryan Kohberger was out and about with his phone off. And during that time, while his phone was off, was committing the murders. The possibilities of that to being true, probably more likely that the DNA that's on the knife sheath belongs to somebody else than all those things happening against Bryan Kohberger in that single night. Now, I know people are going to ask and say, now, Daniel, why isn't this in the PCA? Why didn't we hear about it? Why isn't this all over the place? Why isn't there some sort of news about it? Well, when did they fingerprint Bryan Kohberger? They fingerprinted Bryan Kohberger after his arrest. So if they fingerprinted after his arrest, his fingerprints weren't available to compare when the PCA was written. And by the time that they did fingerprint him and did that test for comparison for fingerprints, there's a gag order in place. And there's absolutely no reason for the state to disclose that type of evidence out there. So I, for one, do believe that we are going to see fingerprints at this scene that belong to Bryan Kohberger. And this is going to be one huge nail in the coffin. I mean, how do you explain that now? Let me know in the comment section. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You know what to do. We'll be back tomorrow night. On Thursday night, we're going to be talking about some Karen Reed interviews. You don't want to miss it. So hit that subscribe button. Peace.